One of the most substantial investments you'll make when it comes to detailing cars is the investment you make in your buffing pads. And the secret to getting the longest life out of your buffing pads is keeping them clean. And in this video, we're going to show you how. Mike Phillips with Autogeek.com. And we're on location in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin at Lake Country Manufacturing. And I have with me Dave Patterson, the technical manager for new product development. Dave, how are we doing today?
I think we're doing awesome.
You know, one of the most common questions I get asked is, how do I clean my pads? And I know there's a couple of different ways to clean your pads, including the spur, the nylon brush, and blasting with air. But you've got something really cool here. What is this?
This is the Lake Country System 3000D Pad Washer, and it's able to be used on all polishers, including DA and rotary.
And also for all types of pads, correct?
Correct.
And one of the unique things about this pad washer is how it actually cleans the pad without recontaminating the pad at the same time. Isn't that the key thing about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that's proprietary to us that we developed and have a patent on. And it's the ability to clean your pad multiple ways, one of them using a filtered system. So if you look into the pad washer, what we utilize here is a center wash plate that you pump to pull up the liquid. And if we pull that assembly out, what you can see is the catch basin underneath it, and we can show how that works.
Let's take a look. Let's just go ahead and dissect this so everybody can see the magic behind how this thing works.
So we start off with a regular 5-gallon bucket.
It's a 5-gallon bucket.
So what we could start off with is
Can I pull a magic rabbit out of here?
You can.
Okay, no.
But what we'll do is we'll start with the most basic and the regular way that people have been using pad washers in the past. So you can use this without the catch basin. You push the top down, it will pump up the water, clean the pad, and the dirty water comes back down. So it technically contaminates your water.
Sure.
And you'll have to change your water a little bit more often. The next way you can do it is by inserting plugs in these holes and adding this. And what we do is we would insert our fresh water into the bottom, we put our plugs in here, and then put in our catch basin. Now what happens is once we install the top, we're pumping fresh water from the bottom, and the catch basin is holding all the dirty water, so we're not contaminating our water.
But there's another component here now, and this must be part of it though. So besides the catch basin, this is the filter.
Yeah, so this is the third way to use it, and this is what's, in my opinion, the coolest part about it. So what you can do is you can plug the bottom of the, take your plugs out of the bottom, and then we'll insert this micron filter into the base of the bucket. And then once we put this pad washer back on, technically it's pulling the water from the bottom, washing the pad, and then before that water re-enters the bottom of the bucket, it's going through a micron filter to block any of the abrasives and dirt coming back into it.
So it keeps your pads cleaner as you're cleaning them without recontaminating.
Yeah, without recontaminating.
What we would call cross-contamination.
Yeah, it's the first pad washer on the market that avoids cross-contamination.
Now, the secret to how this also works though is this unique feature right here with these ribs, and you actually run the polisher and then you press it against this and pump it up and down. What this does is that then it pumps the cleaning fluid into the pad and then kind of squeegees the residue that builds up on the face of the pad like compound or polish residue, and it peels it off the pad, correct?
Correct, yeah, and the way that the ribs are designed is there's not really any sharp edges, so the pad doesn't
wear out the pad.
Yeah, it doesn't defect or make the pad defective or start wearing the pad out more. But the ribs, along with the cleaning solution in the base, help clean the surface of your pad. So, you know, one of the biggest things when polishing paint is keeping your pad clean or your residue control. It's a double-edged sword. If your pad's dirty, it's not going to cut as well, and it's not going to finish as well either.
Exactly. Now, I see a couple microscopic, almost pinholes here in the center portion. Is this where the water flushes up?
Yeah, this is where the water flushes up, and typically, a lot of times when you see your pads, you kind of get a wet spot in the middle, just because it doesn't rotate quite the same, so that same area tends to absorb a little bit extra polish. So the water comes up in here, and because of these extra little nubs, it helps clean the center of the pad as well as the outer ring.
And then, of course, centrifugal force throws everything out to the outside, and then it drops to the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah, it throws it all to the edge and catches in the edge, and then it drains down through the base plate.
Okay, and one of the reasons it's important to have a tool like this, besides keeping your pads clean, is to get more use out of the pads.
Yeah.
Okay, and anytime you're buffing and you're using either a compound or a polish or a cleaner wax, because all three of these have the ability to abrade the surface. And when you're abrading the surface, for example, say with the wool pad on a rotary, you're going to have the residue of your compound or your polish building up on the face of the pad. But since you're abrading the paint, you also have some of the paint building up here too.
Yeah.
So you actually have two things building up on the face of the pad. And one of the ways I explain cleaning pads to other people is just like after you buff a section, you always take a microfiber towel and you wipe off the residue, don't you?
Yep.
And that same residue that's on the panel that you wipe off is residue that's on the face of the panel. You can't just wipe it off. So this is where a unique device like this to safely but effectively clean that gunk that builds up on here really comes in handy as far as the performance of the pad and the longevity of the pad.
Absolutely, and if you're using it during your polishing process as you go around the vehicle, it cools your pad too.
That's another good point. The thing I wanted to kind of stress about this as far as cleaning your pads though, is if you don't clean your pads with something like this, then every time you introduce new products, so say you finish buffing half the hood, you move over to the other half of the hood, if you continually keep adding fresh product onto a dirty pad, a couple things are taking place. One is you're diluting the strength of the product because it's mixing with used product. You're polluting the product because now it's mixing with used product, spent product, and the paint that's already been peeled off the car. So now you're fighting yourself. Plus, this gunk that starts to build up on the face of the pad gets harder to wipe off, and that tires you out. And it's already enough work to buff out a car. We don't want to make it any harder.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things is, regardless of whether you use the System 3000D pad washer, we want you to keep your pads clean either way, right? So we can go over some of the other methods to clean a pad, right?
Yeah, well, you know, what's funny, just because you brought that up, if you keep your pads clean and they last longer, you make less money, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's not show this then.
Okay.
No,
this goes away.
But there are some other ways to clean your pads. So this is called a spur. So how would a person use this?
Well, a lot of detailers don't know what this is these days. But yeah, this is a traditional spur that you'd use with a rotary and a wool pad. This is what's going to break up your compound and clean the surface of your wool pad. Everybody has a different opinion or how they typically use a pad, but ideally, washing a wool pad does change it. Yeah. So a lot of people will use a wool spur and clean their pad regularly, and because this pad is only used typically for heavy compounding, it doesn't necessarily have to be washed the same as other pads either.
Yeah, and also just to point out that if you use the pad washer, you can come back with the spur to kind of refluff up the fibers before you start buffing, and that just makes buffing easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides a steel spur, this is a nylon pad cleaning brush.
Yep.
And so how would a person use this to clean their pads?
So this one would be used typically on the fly while you're using it, and you would turn the polisher on. Well, technically you could turn the polisher on or leave it off, and you would brush the excess product off of the surface of the pad. And what it does is it cleans the pad surface without damaging the foam.
And it's for the same reason, to remove the spent product and the paint that's been removed off during any compounding or polishing process. To get back down to a clean surface, then you could add your fresh product onto it.
Absolutely.
And then we have one more tool up here, and this could be used for cleaning pads also.
Yeah, so this is going to be your compressed air, whether you use a standard blowgun or a Tornador blowgun. They both do the same thing or have the same idea, as you're using compressed air to clean the pad. Typically, I do not recommend using air on foam pads because you can damage the foam structure, especially once it's been saturated with polishes. But there are people that do it. There is a technique to doing it if you choose to. But like I said, I don't typically recommend it. I recommend using compressed air on knitted style wool pads and on new microfiber pads.
Microfiber pads, sure.
Both of these items have something that either it doesn't have a foam where it needs to penetrate, or it has a layer where it blocks that material from entering the foam. So luckily, none of the wool pads and microfiber pads typically are damaged by compressed air, and that's how I would recommend using them if you have compressed air. Otherwise, you would still use a brush just like you would on a foam pad on this style wool and microfiber pads as well.
So that's 4 different options to clean your pads, again, for longer life, better performance of the pad, and better results overall. Yep. Where can people get more information about the System 3000 Pad Cleaner?
We have videos on how they work, along with dissect videos of the pad washer on our website, www.lakecountrymfg, as in manufacturing.com.
You know, I got to tell you, all the years I've been detailing cars, whenever I'm trying to teach someone how to detail cars, one of the first things I say is I try to stress the importance of keeping your pad clean. It's called working clean, you know? Not only having a clean environment, starting of course with a clean car, but as you're working around that car, keeping your pad clean. It's gonna make it easier for you, you're gonna get better results, and really that's what it's about. Aren't we here to create beauty?
Yeah, the best results.
Work clean.